Welcome, everyone. Okay, you guys have some inside jokes going on here. Okay, the Snarkitect, Eric the Snarkitect. Yes, okay. I am not going to get distracted by the chat right away. We are kicking this off now. Let's see who all's here. Katya, good to see you. Jeff, hey, Alan. Jim, Karsten, yay, Karsten. So we've got a good group here. I will set this off with a quick, let's see how I do this. All right. So you should have seen this change. My name is Nancy Henson. It was funny. Eric and I had the privilege of doing the keynote this morning. It was an absolute blast. So I appreciate everyone that was there, and I appreciate all the hard work that Eric put into this. I noticed one of the chats and somebody said, "Oh, is that Nancy Hollenbach?" And it's like, yes, I came into this world as Nancy Jones. I became Nancy Hollenbach. I went back to Nancy Jones, and I am now Nancy Henson. And I have told my husband we will never be divorced because I'm not changing my name again. So hopefully that got a little chuckles there. For those of you that don't know me real well, I started my career at NI in 1989. I had not graduated from college yet. I was a double E at Rice University. And one of my roommates had gone to work for this amazing company called National Instruments. So I decided to go intern for the summer. And that was well over 30 years ago. So it's been a really fun ride over the last 3+ decades. I helped get the CLA Summit started years ago. I helped Steve Summers get the NI Test Center of Excellence program up and running years ago. It was awesome, Karsten, to see you and Falk getting the certificate for the NI Test Center of Excellence. Thrilled to see that happen. And so I've had a bunch of roles, and I'm super duper excited because I have a new role, and it is the developer relations lead at National Instruments. And it's going to be a lot of fun for me. It's going to be a lot of fun, I hope, for you guys, and empowering of you guys. But before I even get started, this already was my first slide before it became the first question in the keynote. And the question was, okay, National Instruments, when are we going to get another CLA Summit on the calendar? Because as much as we enjoy the flexibility of this global event and having it be online and seeing all of our friends in real time, even though we're not in the same room together, we need both types of events. We need both our online event that we have today, and then we also need to be able to have our in-person events. So I'm going to get to that towards the end, but that is very representative of what is the purpose of someone in developer relations. So who are my constituents? And so before we dive too far into who are my constituents, I want to talk a little bit about the developer relations role. I'm super excited. A lot of people at NI over the years have had roles in which they were either starting the Champions program, continuing the Champions program. Chris Cellino handed it off to me, and then we handed it off to Eric Reffett, and Eric's doing a fantastic job with it. And we've had people involved with developer days and user groups and a variety of different developer activities. We've had people in those roles helping grow our community and support our community over the years. And what's interesting is this is the first time that we at National Instruments have had someone in, quote, the developer relations role. And so my responsibilities are not marketing. They're not sales, they're not support, they're not services. And I've got a great manager that keeps me focused on it is developer relations and narrowly focused on working with you all and help building our community above and beyond where it's already been, which is absolutely fantastic. And so even though a lot of people did have aspects of this role as part of what they were metriced on, this is 100% my job. So I want to dive a little bit into the interesting characteristics of developers. And there's a lady out there. Her name is S.J. Morris. First name Sarah, and she speaks a lot in a lot of different podcasts and talks about developers and a little bit about developers, kind of versus customers. And it's interesting because as developers, we onboarded to the NI platform and NI software 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, or 3 years ago. And so as developers, sometimes we're buying large systems and sometimes our name is on the check. But a lot of times there's somebody else that's purchasing the solution or the system, and we are cranking out the software that enables a successful solution. And so a lot of times our mindset as developers is, I don't want to see any of the marketing because I'm already going to buy what you're selling me because I love it. I just need to see the specs on the hardware. I need to understand how this new module facilitates something that I'm doing. And so as developers, we have our technical hat on. And when we're engaging with NI, we want the technical details. Yeah, we love the keynotes and all the excitement around new product drops, but we want the technical details. And so it's really important that as we grow our relationships with developers, that we enable those deeper technical conversations. And I'm going to say one more thing about developers as well is there are times when we may have more of an asynchronous interface with other developers or with NI. And by that, I mean, I might post a question on the forums, and then later somebody answers the forum post. And so that's very asynchronous. We should all know about synchronous and asynchronous activity as we are software developers. But even in our communications, we can make that distinction. And sometimes I just need a quick answer in an asynchronous format. But the real learning and the collaboration is with my fellow developers and having conversations in real time. And so that's a little bit of kind of what distinguishes things. And Anton, I'm going to get to your question in just a moment. One other thing to mention is, and I'll get to it a little bit more in a moment, and that is the fact that our developer community is kind of a subset of our overall community and our customers. We have a fantastic team that has maintained our NI community site, ni.com/community. And they do a lot with the broader community. And from a developer relations perspective, I have a little bit of a narrower focus than that group. And I'll come to that in just a minute. So, Anton, this is a fantastic question. Growing the overall number of LabVIEW devs on the planet. Yes, I want to grow the overall LabVIEW devs on the planet, without a doubt. And it's growing them. So it's bringing them into the funnel. And then it's ensuring that you all are successful and you renew. You're growing in your skill sets and what you can do. And so it is bringing more LabVIEW developers in, and it's growing all of us as a community from a new renewal perspective. LabVIEW developers and test stand are a significant part of NI software revenue. I mean, we are NI software revenue. And so we want to continue to invest in LabVIEW and invest in our community. And so, yes, we're going to grow both. If I think about it from my perspective and Nancy Henson's metrics, there are a lot of people focused on onboarding people. And then there's a lot of people focused on making sure you're strong and you get your questions answered. But I'm going to delineate a little bit between adoption and onboarding and retention in just a moment, and that will help out answering that question. So the thing that I do is, or rather my constituents are individuals who write code that connects to NI products. And so that is inclusive of our customers, because even if it's a senior manager at SpaceX that bought a bunch of stuff from NI, it's going to be SpaceX developers and Loftus Mercer and whoever who are actually going to be developing the software. And so we can think about our software developers almost as being a little bit of a subset of our customers. And sometimes our software developers may not actually be a customer. They're at least a hardware software customer. But you can think about they might not be a software customer, because someone in Python or C# may be programming something in PXI, and maybe they haven't discovered the wisdom of buying test stand to augment their Python. But anyhow, this kind of gives you guys just a little bit of a picture here of who am I responsible for. And the other thing I like about this picture is, think about it. This is a very, very large group of our customers, and all of you all here and everybody else that is an individual who writes code that connects to NI products is one of my constituents. And I jokingly said in the keynote, it's like, yes, that's great. That means I'm in charge of the company. Sorry, Eric Starkloff. No, I am not. I do not want Eric's role. I am not the CEO. I love the job I'm in. And so a lot of what we'll talk about is kind of the handshakes that a developer relations person like myself will have across the organization. And it's to enable the community, but sometimes it's putting you guys in touch with that right person at NI. The other thing I want to mention, and Eric and I showed this slide this morning as well, is, way back in the day, all of the software developers at NI wrote in LabVIEW. When I was in sales and I was selling to John Gianangeli in 1983 and 1984, there was no test stand. And the very first test executive that Mike Santori wrote was in LabVIEW. And then over time, we've been adding, more software products that take care of a certain very tightly scoped functionality into our suite of software. And so, we added Test Stand, we're adding System Link, we're going to add Measurement Link, and we've got O+. And so LabVIEW still plays a very essential role in our automated measurements and automated test. And sometimes LabVIEW will be the entire software stack. There will be applications in which it makes perfect sense. The right tool for the right job is a LabVIEW software stack. Sometimes you're going to have LabVIEW, and then you will weave in Test Stand, or you're going to send data to System Link. And so as the complexity of our applications grows, so the complexity of our software stack grows. And then that's when we want to make sure that LabVIEW is always going to connect to the NI infrastructure that brings in other COTS types, components, and functionality. So let me check to see. Oh yeah, Eric's saying, don't put all the responsibility on me. A lot of people are working with me. Eric, you must have seen my slides that I'm getting to. So let's get to those next couple of slides then. And before we get to those next couple of slides, I want to talk a little bit about how we look at even the software developer community. And so we're going to see a couple of phases where you have a new or existing customer comes in. And that individual may frequent the community and have a good experience. That person may just come in, do a couple things, and then disengage. Ideally, we want you to have a good experience and good connection so that you then start collaborating in the community and collaborating with a lot of people in a lot of different ways. And that's where you start to get the increased value of the community. Hopefully, there's not a horrible negative event. And sometimes people leave the community. It is what it is. You go, decide to do web design or something like that. But ultimately, we really want to encourage as many of those who are in the community, find your spot, find out where you really fit in best to collaborate. And collaborating can be answering questions. Oops, I knew that was going to happen. Answer questions on the forums, or collaborating can be going to events, hosting events. And then ultimately, we look at all of the fantastic things that are happening in our community between all of the platforms for sharing code, the platforms for collaborating, all of the blogs. I mean, it's a huge, huge environment right now. And we're looking forward to doing a better job of promoting that and bringing more of you all down the funnel. So I'm less focused on somebody who is very new to LabVIEW and is just learning LabVIEW and doing some of the getting started. I really focus on the community and the developer community once you guys come in kind of to our community. And that means you have an NI profile, you're starting to do stuff online, and you're trying to find connections to meet with people in person. So that is really the area in which I focus. That being said, I will still be thinking about what are we doing to help people on board. And so when Piotr Ma has these fantastic videos around onboarding and LabVIEW, then I'm going to want to connect him back to the appropriate people at NI that can leverage what he's bringing to the community, and make sure we get it out to more individuals who can use his videos to learn LabVIEW faster. So this is really the connecting role. And I'm going to just highlight a couple of these and then elaborate on it kind of broadly. So I'm developer relations at NI. If you go look at the industry of developer relations, every company is a little bit different. So some software companies are just API companies. They may have APIs that for AI. Some companies do have development environments. And so at NI, we are a developer first company. Like almost everybody today is going to be writing some software. We do some turnkey systems today. Our partners do turnkey systems today, but the developer community is very important. So I work with the developer community. I should actually have these bubbles maybe overlapped a little bit. And so the community is, really our online community. And we have some fantastic individuals working on that and who are going to be more engaged on that. The platform we have for the community site, we're going to be making some investments into the infrastructure and making it flow a little bit better and easier to use, which I'm really excited about. And I'll mention a couple of other things. So I work very, very closely with the community. I work closely with Eric Reffett. Eric is brave and bold enough to have our champions program. And so I'm really thankful for trying to follow the chats here. Really thankful for everything that Eric has done in the community. Eric is in charge of the champions. I'm not. So if you got a champions issue, you go give it to Eric. If there's a problem with the online community, you can let me know about it. I don't fix it. I hand it off to the appropriate person who can fix it. So that kind of gets back to what Eric said a while back. I can't remember where it is. But yeah, I don't do everything, but I can connect you to the people that do the things. All right. We also have PBU or BUs. So NI is now organized in business units. And so we have our semiconductor business unit, we have our transportation business unit, and we have our aerospace defense government business unit. And each one of those business units is really focused on the key challenges in those industries. And so the customers of our TBU products may have a different profile than the customers in ADG or CBU. And so it's fun and it's interesting. And at the same time, as soon as we find certain technologies that go across all business units, a lot of those technologies become part of our platform software. And then I am actually in what we call our portfolio business unit. And so we handle the rest of the industries and a lot of our tier 2 accounts. And then we also are responsible for our non-direct business that is going through our distributors. We're responsible for the web experience for people who are going to just buy online without talking to a human. And the specific group that I'm in, for those of you that know the Tools Network, I report up to Matthew Friedman, and he used to run the Tools Network. And we're part of Shelley Gretline's organization, which is our software strategy. So even though we are in the portfolio business unit, we are focusing on those customers. We're focusing on our non-direct customers to make sure they're successful. And then we also look across at the BUs to ensure that we're taking into consideration everything else with our industry business units. So that's where I reside in the organization. So I'm very plugged in there. I'm excited. We have some campaigns. That means from marketing speak terms, we're going to go do some cool stuff from a marketing perspective. And we're going to have some campaigns specifically around just LabVIEW and then also test workflow. And so you're going to see LabVIEW talked about a lot through those campaigns, which is definitely going to be exciting. So the next little piece here is partners and distributors. One of the things that has made my new role, and I've been in this role for 45 days now, roughly, really fun and exciting is what I'm seeing happening in the partners program and getting to know some of our distributors. So for those of you that are what is called a consultant partner, those partners, you have Lyle Shuey as your contact within the partner organization. And Lyle's done a fantastic job at really bringing you guys up to speed on what we're doing, enabling consulting partners. And it's been really awesome to see the effort and the energy and the focus that Lyle's brought to. And so he's one of my key partners, because the Partners Program has so much to bring to the community. And we'll see a little bit of that in a moment. And some of that should kind of be obvious to you guys. All right, so who else we have here? Education services. Okay, I mentioned this in the keynote because I'm super duper excited. I have known individuals in ed services. You guys know Mallory Martin for years, and Barbara Hammond is the director over there. And I've known her for the past couple of years. And we have been talking about two things. So you might as well spit it out in the chat. We've been talking about certifications, and then we've also been talking about training. And there were some conversations we had at GDevCon North America in the live event that we had in Golden, Colorado, which is absolutely gorgeous. Thank you, Sam, for that, helping host that. And I was talking to Jason, and oh, I'm going to totally space it now. Sorry if I am spacing everyone who does training things. So DSH and other individuals, oh yeah, and Sam, who do training. And we sat down, it's like, wow, we know this, but there were a lot of members in the community, champions and partners, and, LabVIEW and test software aficionados who provide foundational, excellent training. And you guys are selling it on your own. And the feedback that we always get regularly is the NI training is more product centric, which is kind of natural because we are focused on making sure we have the essential training on our products. And at the same time, there's all of the learning around the context of doing automated measurements and doing these science and engineering projects. And so Barbara and I are talking about, okay, how do we work together better? How do I get the community plugged in with her organization so that our customers are immediately exposed to all the other training options they have through you guys? For those of you that know Gretchen Edelman, I've known her for years. She is in charge of the technology for the delivery of our training. And she and I have some fun, wacky ideas that we may start pushing out sometime in the year here. So I'm curious about something. I just want to make sure the chat is working. Eric, would you say hi to me? Because I don't see anything new in the chat. And I want to make sure that, yeah, okay, good. I just want to make sure that I hadn't missed anything at that point. So ed services, what else do we have? We have EAs and we have R&D. And so our research and development is under our product platform organization. Oh, good. The Q&A tab, I'll go over there. Thank you, Eric. And so Eric is part of that organization when it comes to, roadmaps of LabVIEW, TestStand, Measurement Link, and a lot of our software tools. They are under what we kind of call R&D. At NI, we call it product platform. So I work with those guys, and then everything that we're doing from a non-direct perspective are things and applications that we can tie into EAs as well. And so I spend a lot of time with our PBU EA master, Miss Nikita Fallon. Okay, let me grab this question right here. Okay, welcoming to new developers. Oh my gosh, that is interesting, Jesper. And it's interesting because I will capture this, and we want to come back to this. And the reason it's interesting is because when I was sitting for the LabVIEW experiment with Sam Taggart, he mentioned that when he is in the communities and seeing other software languages, he sees those groups being less friendly than he feels like LabVIEW is. And so that was his impression. And then what I'm hearing from you is the exact opposite. So let me table that thought, because I'm going to come back to that when I talk about some of the specific initiatives and areas that I'm going to be putting developer relations focus behind. So Jesper, I will come back to that question in just a moment. Eric, yes, that's my number one job. In fact, I think that might be the next slide that is popping up. Let's see what's next. Um, yes. So I mentioned, I showed the kind of that flow of the various activities that people do when they are engaging with the community. And so we have the individuals who are just consuming information. They may disengage. We have the collaborate group where now you really want to not just receive information and ideas, you want to give back and interact with others in either a asynchronous or synchronous fashion. So answering forum questions, attending these events live or otherwise. And this is the group that has that I feel like if I were to come in and say, I'm going to give NI a scorecard, if I were to give NI a scorecard on developer community, then I would look at Collaborate saying, yeah, this is probably our weaker place right now, in part because of kind of the COVID. We can't meet in person. So we spent 2 years not meeting in person. And through all of the transition of trying to do that, we've learned a lot about doing online. And now the number one thing really that I'm going to be focused on is this little area right here through regional user groups. And so those that are collaborating are still consuming, but they're also collaborating. And then the third group is create and champion. And these are the groups of individuals, those of you who are running events like this, running GDevCon, supporting G Central, VIPM, and the wiki and blogs and everything else. And you all are highly engaged, giving so much to the community, hopefully getting a fraction back from what you put into the community. And so the developer relations role is to make sure people can onboard in the community and they get comfortable. And we want to bring as many of you all through to engage as much as you have the time and energy to do so. And so it's bringing more into collaborate, create, and champion. And I think my mission statement is something to the effect of create a ginormous, engaged, innovative, excited community, leveraging NI software to connect to NI products and to connect to all those other things too, but to connect to NI products. And so I'm going to shift a little bit from just developer relations into more of what are the specific goals in 2023? What are the things I want to tackle there? And we're going to do some good Q&A around that. But before I move further, any questions so far? It gives me a chance for my Diet Coke. All right, I don't see, okay, great. I don't see any other questions. So this is the first and foremost thing that I will be focusing on in 2023. And that is helping empower, recharge, enable, whatever word we want to use, our regional user groups. And so I'll dive into some more details in this in the next slide. One of the key things here that you see in item number 2 is we have the landing pages and the community site around community, around events, and around reuse code. It's easy for us to go in and change those landing pages. And so I'm expecting that those landing pages will be changed. At some point in time, we'll be uploading that during the day tomorrow. We didn't want to interfere with the event today, but definitely no later than Wednesday, you will see that some of the key tabs under the community page have been updated. The infrastructure of the community, as I mentioned earlier, is going to have some upgrades throughout 2023. But the actual, some of the content that we're going to change that immediately. And so I will be pointing to, and this is something we haven't seen on the community pages before, but when I go over to the section on reuse code, it is going to be pointing to specifically VIPMIO, G Central. When I go look at the user group section, it is going to point specifically to a form that you will be able to fill out starting on Wednesday. Anyone will be able to go up there and fill out that form and say, I want to be part of a user group. and then all the links to blogs and everything else we have in our community. I'm going to make sure that we get as much of that up there on our community site as possible. And then really as a community, we'll figure out, okay, does NI need to keep this stuff current? What does NI need to keep current? Or when does NI point to another site? Just so we can make sure that, there's a few dictionaries or jumping off spots that will have links to all the amazing community content. And so that is actually the second thing here. Oops, didn't want to go that far. Like I said, promoting all of our collaboration sites and all of our getting started content. I know there is a ton out there that I'm not aware of. I just got to meet Chris Rogers from Tufts University. I think it was last week, and he has a course on LabVIEW, and he's going to be running it again in the spring for his engineers. And he has some fantastic content. So let's figure out how to ensure that his content could potentially be leveraged even by those of us in industry. So I want to promote everything that you guys are doing. Don't hesitate to send me an email. Say, hey, Nancy, have you heard of this site? I'll go check it out. So the last piece here is the fun piece. And that is we're going to explore and pilot different things. So this is all what I'm going to try to do in 2023. And hopefully there'll be bandwidth for maybe a little bit more, but it's the user groups. First and foremost, recharge the user groups. That is number one. Then it really in conjunction with that is promoting you all and what you're doing. And then on this pilot, this is just an example of some ideas that we've been talking about at NI around, and it really gets to your question earlier, and that is, how do we ensure that people can be successful when they're learning LabVIEW? How do we get them plugged in? How do we ensure that someone who's learning LabVIEW goes to the community and has a good experience? And I'm going to give you guys an example of something I literally just learned about 30 minutes ago. We have some internal Substack conversations, and so there'll be a lot of technology exchange. And if I were to ask a question to Christina Rogers, she will reply back, say, hey, Nancy, it's a great question. The answer is blah, 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 2 sentences. And then she will point me to, and if you want to learn some more information, you can go over here. Now, Christina Rogers could have said, hey, Nancy, you dumbo, you didn't even know that you had this resource over here. No, she doesn't do that. She answers super quick and then points me to the resource where I can reinforce what she just told me and learn more. And I love that motion. And I think that's the kind of motion that we're going to want to really have in our culture. But the only way you can do that are those of us who know everything that's going on in the LabVIEW community. The only way we can do that is know what's out there, be cognizant of it, be somewhat organized in the myriad of information that's out there, and just have a mentality of changing that culture. And so hopefully that answers your question. And part of it is we're going to have to come up with some different ways of doing things. And so one of the ideas that I saw that Shelley Gretlein mentioned to me when she attended this conference, and the conference is called TSIA, write it down, Technology Services Industry Association. And so there's a lot of companies like Autodesk and IBM and HP and so many different companies, and Microsoft are members of this organization. And so what this organization does is it is an industry organization for us. They do a lot of research so that we can learn what our peers are doing in the industry. And so, for instance, if you a lot of how we will structure things and organize some of our models and straight around TSIA. And so they provide us a lot of really good information so we can ensure that the things that we're doing and pricing and all of that aligns, roughly with industry. And so I really love that organization. And their SAP had these things called learning pods or learning groups is what they specifically called it. I think they had 150,000 learning groups where a group of people would come together and they would take some training and work with one another to ask the dumb questions in a very safe space to ask the dumb questions, which all questions are not dumb questions. And so I'm thinking about, well, how do we do these? How do we create learning LabVIEW pods? What if when someone installs LabVIEW, Now, just FYI, when they install LabVIEW, there are 3 emails that they do get, and those emails point them to getting started and a few other things. And all of that, that new, what we call nurture stream, is launching tomorrow, in fact. But I want that to also point them to, oh, do you want to go to a learning pod or learning group? And maybe that learning group will be run by Steve Watts because he's willing to help out. And maybe he gets some customers out of this. And so we want to figure out, how do we do these learning pods, connect people, because that's that important thing that we're missing right now is getting our newer users connected into our ecosystem, in large part in person. So that is super, super important as we move forward. And let me double check some of the questions here. I'm going to get back to supporting user groups. So Eric, and then, okay, Jesper, I think I got your question. Eric, I'll answer your question in a moment. Jeff, yes, that's what we want to do. And the first thing that we're going to do to solve this problem is going to be just pointing our customers to, here's where you go, fill out a form and sign up for a user group. And it's going to be very manual initially, from the perspective of that information gets dumped into an Excel spreadsheet. But once we start that, and once we start seeing some trends, because they're going to specify, one of the things they're going to say is, oh, I'm in this industry and I'm either new or I'm experienced. And so in that form, then I can say, okay, Jeff, here's everybody in your part of town. Steve, here's everybody in your neck of the woods in the UK. And so it will be manual at first. And then the customers, when they fill out the form, they're going to get a thank you back. And then they will know that someone will be contacting them over the next couple of weeks. And then over time, as we explore the different IT investments that NI already has on the roadmap, we'll be able to figure out how to make that that process a little smoother. And so I am super duper excited about that. And that's the other cool thing about TSIA is, their technology companies are all software companies. And so those software companies are struggling with the same thing that we're struggling with. And so that's another place where I have a tremendous amount of resources to go to and find out, okay, how is Autodesk doing it? How is Microsoft doing it? How's this other company doing it? And then they can plug me in to so that I can get to know various people who are doing my same job elsewhere. So that's another huge area of support for me in this role. All right, I think I'm looking at the chat. I think we're pretty good, and we're good on timing. So what I want to do next, if there's any other questions that are not related to user groups or the CLA summit, please bring that question now, because I'm about to shift to user groups and CLA summit, and we'll be finishing right about on time with a little bit of room for questions. All right. User groups. So the number one thing that my leadership and my management team cares about for 2023 is let's support and recharge, re-enable, whatever term we want to use, our regional user groups. And that's going to be a collaborative effort. I will have a role in that. I've already started talking to some individuals at a few of our distributors. I've got a lot of people to get to know in this space. We're figuring out, okay, well, you all as partners, there's a role for you all here. And so initially, right out of the bat, one of the things that has changed very, very specifically is that, we're not doing self-serve. I am here to pick up the phone and answer the email as it relates to user groups. And Jesper, I think you had another question here. Okay, great. Okay, I missed the other question. I'm going to come back to that. Excellent. I'm glad you asked that question. So Jesper, you asked the question about keeping the community fresh and interesting for people who have 15 to 20 years of experience in LabVIEW and test stand, but have stagnated in your learning curve. I think regional user groups will help with that, and I think even our other events that we don't even know about will help with that. I mean, if I'm stagnant in my knowledge, the first thing I'm going to do is, perhaps go run one of these beginner user groups and start getting all the questions that I'm getting from the beginners, and then that reminds me of all the things that I have forgotten over the past 5 to 10 years. So. So this is really important. And so these are the regional user groups. These are the ones that, 15, 10 years ago, even 7 years ago, you had an NI salesperson there that was helping support that. And so now your support person is me. And the way that we're going to do this is I have an advisory council. And those of you who are on the advisory council know, yeah, Nancy hasn't answered my question in the last day or two. A little bit of preparation for some things end of last week and this week. And my calendar opens up a lot as of tomorrow. So I'm super excited about that. So the advisory council, we're just going to be tossing some ideas around. And then there'll be a broader group, which is, until someone tells me this is a really bad idea, all of our user group leaders, we're going to kind of rename that user group guides, because you got to have a good acronym. So you guys are the UGs. And so all of you who say, hey, Nancy, I'm going to start this user group here or there, wherever, we will have our own private page, like has happened before in the past on the community site, but I'm going to be in that page answering the questions. And so anyone who wants to boldly go start a user group, or you need to refresh your own, I'm there to support you and help you work through any of the challenges and roadblocks you have, connect you to other people. And so, for instance, Darren Nattinger has, said, hey, I'll go present at any user group. And so now I know there's probably quite a few of you guys that are scrambling to email Darren and say, hey, I want to, will you present at my user group? Will you present at my user group? That's okay today. And, Darren has a certain amount of time. He's got lots of presentations. So does Norm. There are so many others out there that can present as well. And, whether it's learning about Measurement Link or anything really that you guys have questions about, let's see if we can find someone to help present. So again, that's going to be a little bit of a manual process initially as we figure out what the best way to do it is. But in the future, that should be a request solution. Oh my gosh, Eric, you are the most brilliant person on the planet. Honorable user group guides. Hugs. I love that. Hug the Uggs. Hugs. Yeah, Eric, are you in R&D or are you in marketing? That looks like someone who might be in marketing and not R&D. Anyhow, I jest. Oh yeah, I know you've done both. So there's another key piece here that is really important, and it ties back into what we want to do with recertification by points and better connectivity back into education services. We need to have a thugs. Okay, this is brilliant. So Alan Smith, the totally honorable user group guides are thugs. I'm going to go back to UGs. We'll figure out what this looks like in the future state. Anyhow, I digress. We need a registration process if you guys want to opt into it, for those of you that choose to, because there are some of you that are already using Eventbrite and it's working great. That being said, if we have the appropriate registration process for our user groups, then when people sign up for the user group, we will eventually connect that over to certification by points so that you can get points for that attendance. Just so you guys know, in the conversations I've had with Barbara, like I said, she's eager to work with the community, work with me. And that group has a lot of IT infrastructure that I think they're going to be working on in 2023. I don't know what all the features are that they're working on, and they are going to be working on recertification by points. We've already, Barbara and I have already started to have some good planning conversations for 2023, and I'm excited to continue to work with her. I don't execute on anything from an education services perspective. That's not what I do. I handshake with her and we collaborate on things and get done what needs to be done for you guys in the developer community. Any questions on regional user groups? We are going to collaborate. We need to come up with some different things. I'll get to that in just a moment. All right, Jeff, we're going to sign your user group up for that. Excellent. Again, the registration process and the presenter request system, those are a lighter green because they're not in place yet. But what we have as of Wednesday is I support you. We have an advisory council. We have user group guides. We're going to have a sign-up sheet, and we're going to appoint all of our customers more clearly to the active user groups. We're removing all the user groups that are not active. Some of them are, depending on how long they've been active, are going to be what we call idle. And when you go to that user group page, it'll say, hey, our existing organizer for this group could not continue. The group is currently idle. Let us know if you would like to start running this particular user group in this particular part of town. It's actually exactly what Salesforce.com does. And so when you go look on their user group page, you will see some that are very active and they have their meeting date. You'll see some cities where they haven't gotten it started yet, but that's a nice invitation to keep that city up there in case someone would like to kick it off. And so incidentally, we've decided to do exactly what they're doing. All right, so this is coming back to the last slide. And I will conclude here in a couple minutes so that we will have a little bit of time for some additional Q&A. And we're going to get back to talking about this elephant in the room. And so, yes, so when Jesper, you're talking about having the same for open source tools and LabVIEW, I'm not exactly sure what you're asking there, but let me tell you what I know we want to do initially, and then we can talk about how we evolve it. We will be pointing to any portal, including GitHub, that contains LabVIEW code. And whether it's usually it's free. And so if you go to the community site today and you go look under example programs, you'll see some examples that looking kind of dated, and you don't see any links off of our community site to other sites. And so we're going to add those links to the other community sites. And that is an interesting thing, Jesper. What I would actually do on that one, as far as you're asking about how do we transfer ownership of projects where the developer has abandoned it, I would funnel that over to VIPMIO and to the G Central team. Because one of the things that we probably should do is if there's some projects that have already been abandoned, let's go capture those and find out what they are. I could envision a situation in which on G Central, somebody starts something and, oh goodness, they have to go on paternity leave or maternity leave, and somebody else needs to pick it up in the interim. And so that is something that we need to take into consideration. And the actual driving factor, I think, would be either those specific groups themselves. So the CLA Summit. I am not promising that we're going to have a CLA Summit in 2023. I cannot promise that as of this time, in part because a lot of the planning, I was not in my role when we've done some of the initial planning. And so let me come back to one more thing before I get too far off on that topic. Because Eric Reffett reminded me, Jesper, if there's some things that NI has abandoned that we should pick up or we should move to G Central, if there's anything that I have not covered or specified, send me an email, because that's part of what this slide is here, is if I need to clarify anything, send me an email here on this. So anyhow, with CLA Summit, we honestly, I know I can't promise that we will. And if we have a lot of headwinds from an economic standpoint, we're going to want to get very, very creative. Will we have a CLA Summit in the future? We will have, I think, and I don't want to overpromise, and definitely for 2023, we're a software company. And we're going to figure out what does a software developer conference need to look like moving forward in the future. There we will take what we've learned and the value of things like the CLA Summit. With the CLA Summit, we had like 100, 150 people. It was a good number of people. When we get to NI Week, and there's 3,000 people, it's the experience is different. And sometimes, with GDev Cons, those will be a little bit smaller, and we get a lot of deep conversation in those. And so I don't know what it looks like. It sounds like my camera's gone away for a minute. Hopefully it'll come right back. And so thank you, Eric, for letting me know that the camera disappeared and I'm back. So anyhow, this is a time for us to explore and be creative about how do we want to work together. We may have an event that, let's say we call it we're going to call it the elephant event. So we have the software developer elephant event. And we meet in person in Q1 and Q3, and then we have online meetings in Q4 2 and in Q4. Who knows what we do? Then there's other ideas like Sam Taggart had this great idea that he saw, and it's called On 24. So you get a bunch of people and you have a hotel room and everybody's going to talk about something, but you really don't know what the specific topics are going to be until you get there. And people say, hey, I want to talk about this. And then you vote and then you go get people in the room to talk about these things and have conversation. So it's really an exciting time. A lot of what I'm going to do in 2023 is get to know some of you all better that I don't know real well, and find out what you're seeing in industry. And we will figure out how to do some of these online or in-person events in addition to GLA summits. Let's figure out how to do some of these in-person events as a community, working with our partners, working with our distributors, me and I here to help facilitate however we can. We just need to figure it out. I just don't have an answer today. But definitely right after regional user groups and promoting the community and what you're doing, this comes right after that as far as my priorities are concerned. And so we're at 3:52, and I want to check to see if there's some questions under Q&A. All right. Yeah, Peter, you're asking the question about universities and going after universities, and it's interesting on that one because there are several people that I've worked with outside of NI that are really eager to go after the universities, but not just from a software perspective, but from a test engineering perspective or a systems engineering perspective. And so there's a gentleman in Florida who's not far down the street from UCF, and he's interested in then also the some of our partners like Sam Roundy has some really good training, and I know he wants to really bring out more training around test engineering. And so for the academic, Eric also mentioned that there's a session later today called NI is working on it. So Eric has just informed me that people within my business unit within PBU are working on it. And I knew we were kind of working on it, but go to that session or at least view it afterwards. And then after that session, if you have any additional questions, definitely toss me an email. Oh, there isn't a session on it. Okay. So I misunderstood Eric. There is not a session on it, but there are things that we are working on there. I don't know what they look like, but if you're interested in academic and being a part of more work in that space and enabling our students, toss me an email and I'll put you in touch with the right people. Any other questions here? So are you guys excited? I cannot tell you, I am so excited about being in this role. I've always helped in the community as one of my things I did in my role. Now it's 100% my job. And I'm absolutely thrilled to have the best job in the company. And Jeff has another question. Oh, on the Q&A. Thank you. All right. Eric, that's a really good question on engaging the FIRST robotics community. And there's a variety of people that are involved in the FIRST robotics community. And I'm trying to remember, I had a conversation with someone and we started going down the path of, from an examples perspective and some getting started, how do we really enable that group? Oh, I know what it was. It was some of the work that VI Technologies was doing, and I think we owe you an email back. I apologize for that. So there was some work that was being done, and there was a significant improvement. It wasn't FIRST Robotics, but it was another club in enabling those students to be successful early on. And so that is something that we can tackle as a community. And what we do then is figure out, okay, let's tackle this as a community. Let's figure out what's needed. What can we do? And then we realize, wait a minute, this particular robotics group happens to be 5 miles from Lockheed Martin down the street. I live in Denver, for those of you who don't know, Denver, Colorado. Lockheed Martin is literally right down the street from me. And it's like, wait a minute, this robotics group needs a little bit of help. Oh, we know some LabVIEW programmers there. Then we start thinking creatively, because that first robotics group that happens to be in that city is part of the talent pool for that particular company. And so there's some connecting that we can do. I think there's some onboarding and training that we can provide. And, that will be something that is not top of my radar for 2023, but I want to start having the conversations and figure out who's active and make sure that you guys are connected. And then we start thinking about, okay, what really might need to happen towards the end of 2023 or 2024. And then I think I hit the fresh and interesting, because through user groups and more activities and events that are talking about many more different things. And that is one of the ways that we're going to grow our skill set. Peter, you bring up a really, really good point, and that's the growing number of homeschoolers. And so I think that, yeah, send me an email on that, because there is definitely an angle for people who are really passionate about supporting STEM. So there's going to be a lot of these things like, academic and FIRST robotics that I am not ultimately responsible for, but I can help you connect to the right people at NI and connect you to others, and kind of help support various initiatives and efforts. Because I would think from a homeschooling perspective that there's going to be a really good economic model or monetization model out there to take learning engineering with LabVIEW and being able to sell homeschooling kits into that market, even if that's not already a thing. But yeah, I think that's a fantastic and fun angle. And so why don't you, so Eric wants to learn more on that. So Peter, email both me and Eric on that. One of us will get in touch with you. Oh, that's absolutely fantastic. Great to hear from you, Peter. Yeah, I'd love to see more. My passion is really more about women in technology and empowering women in technology. And quite frankly, if I could empower women outside of the United States who are in countries in which their opportunities are significantly limited, they can't immigrate somewhere. The opportunities locally are just in the food and beverage and the service industry. I have a couple of women that I've met over the years that I would like to figure out how to help solve that problem. And so that is going to be a lot of what I work on. Probably I'll start working on it in a couple of years as my fun thing to do, to give back. And when I get closer to my retirement years, then that is something that I will probably eventually focus on full time, maybe in 10 years or so. And so that is something I'm very passionate about. And there's others who are going to be a little bit more passionate, perhaps on the STEM side. That being said, there is a school in a town in Honduras, and I want to figure out how to bring STEM to that particular school. And so that's one area that I'll want to do. And so we need to figure out, and maybe what we do is even if we just spin up a community site on ni.com/community, where those of us that are interested in this can at least start having some conversations. So if there's not already a site there around that, then hopefully Eric is taking a note. At least I'm mentally well. And so that we can start having a great conversation, Jasper, with you and Peter. And I know Sam Taggart sent some stuff in this space as well. 1 minute for one more question. And the questions are going. And thank you all for being a part of this session. I look forward to hearing from you. I look forward to all of us having a fantastic 2023 with our community and in-person events, our user groups. It's going to be an absolute joy and thrill to be working on this in 2023. And I really want to thank everyone on the GLA Summit this year and years prior for all of your hard work in putting this together. It's really an honor to be part of this community and at this event today. So thank you.